So we have four great panelists today to discuss about their career in data science or in data space and how they can navigate the growth and opportunities. So I will introduce them. We have Vaishali Khandelwal. She's a senior data scientist at Microsoft, and she has been also previously she is data and applied scientist at Microsoft also. We have Malvika Singh. She is a senior software engineer at Cohesity, and previously she was software engineer at Amazon. And then we have Madison Swain Bowden. She's senior data scientist at Babylist. She's senior data engineer at Babylist, and previously she was staff data engineer at Automatic. And then we have Jennifer D. Figueredo. She's technical project manager at Amazon, and before she was community manager at iterative.ai. So let's welcome them and start. So first question, I would like to ask, like, if they all can share a little bit about your career path and how you got into your current role or data space role.
We made a deal that even though Jenny was sitting in order, I would go first. Okay. So I'm happy to start. Yeah, I'm Madison. I'm a senior data engineer at Babylist. My career into the data space was not necessarily intentional. I actually started off as a scientific software engineer working at the Allen Institute here in Seattle. And very quickly, we were developing software to control the microscopes and produce data, but we were producing data faster than our emailed CSVs and cluster batch processing could handle the data that we were producing. And so I kind of very quickly jumped into developing a solution to try and ease that batch processing with Airflow. And as I described this to a friend of mine who worked at Nordstrom at the time, this was 2017, 2018, they said, oh, I think that sounds like what our data engineers are doing. And I said, what the heck is data engineering? But after looking into that, it really felt like it was something that I enjoyed and something that I wanted to continue doing. And so since then, I've kind of continued my career trajectory into data engineering and really jumping into that space. So that's my story.
I can go next. So I'm Malvika. I did my master's in data analytics from Carnegie Mellon. That's how I got introduced to data for the first time. After that, I tried my hand at software engineering at Amazon Web Services, and that got me into like scalable systems, distributed scalable systems, and big data. So I was curious to incorporate my knowledge of data analytics into like scalable systems and take inspiration from my engineering background. So here I am, and I'm very curious to see where the next step in the data analytics space will go, especially with the advent of Gen AI.
Go ahead. Hi everyone, my name is Vaishali Khandelwal. I am a senior data scientist at Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft for almost 8 years and 2 summer internships. So it's basically what I've known. I don't know of anything else. So I love Microsoft, clearly. I actually started out as a software engineer at Microsoft, and then I transitioned into data science. So I can talk a little bit about that. Other than that, I did a part-time master's in data science from UC Berkeley a couple of years back. It was part-time, on the go with the job, so it was 2 very tough years. I am currently on the Office growth, subscription growth team. I work on retention initiatives under Windows. So, yeah.
Great. So I'm Jenny DeFigueredo. I'm a technical program manager at Amazon. Previously, I was a community manager for DVC for 3 years and 9 months. Previous to that, I was a floral and event designer. And probably you all are going, what the heck does that have to do anything with data? Really not that much. I agreed to do this session because over my time period, I've been participating in this conference and with data circles and with Puget Sound and now diversity and data science. I'm the treasurer from 2019. And I have bumped into so many women that are like, oh, they're transitioning. I don't know if I should be here. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I'm here to tell you, of anyone on this stage and probably anyone in this room, I don't belong here, okay? I have only a bachelor's in business and psychology, and I was super interested in data because I was really curious about who's doing what with this data. Things can get really screwed up with this. I want to know about this. So I was super curious. I found out about the Microsoft Professional Program in data science. I dove in. I kept finding it more and more interesting. I finished it. I joined Data Circles. They were like, we need somebody to do marketing. I'm like, I know how to do that. And so on, and that's how I ultimately ended up. Like, I have the roles that I've been able to get in this space because I was involved in these communities. And that gave me with a resume that showed nothing about data and a past that has anything about computer science, none of it. Nothing. And so I was able to work with people that got to know who I am, that I get stuff done, that I care about things, that it matters to me what happens with data in the world. And so through that experience, I was able to get recommended to things and referred and use my networking to get where I am. And, you know, I'm a smart person. I do good work. I work really hard. And so that really helps me, but that's how I got here. So if you're sitting out there wondering, can I do this? I don't know if I belong here. You belong here. If you're curious, if you're really interested in data, you're going to be just fine. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, thank you all. That's really inspiring. Yeah, before I go into the another question, I want to tell that we got a lot of questions through the submission, and we are trying to cover. I hope they will be covered through these questions, but we will take them after later. So next question is that which there's an audience, there's so many, there was some requests from that question. So that's for people who want to start a career in data. What skills or experience do you think are the most important or important right now? So maybe Vishali, do you want to start?
I can start. So I think for somebody that's looking to get into data science right now, you obviously need the technical skill set. So, you know, you need to know the statistics side of things, the experimentation side of things, there's modeling, visualization, all of that. But I think something that we heard in the keynote speech today was the soft skills. And I think that is becoming very crucial in data science now. It's about how you can storytell with data, how you can simplify concepts such that your stakeholders can understand what's going on. And at the same time, how can you relate your insights to the business goals? I think that's very important. And those are things that happen with time, as we heard, with practice. So there's the product sense side of things, and then there is the simplification and the communication side of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would really love the rebranding of soft skills to essential skills this morning. That was beautiful. Well done. I totally agree with that. And I think that's part of the reason, like, those are transferable skills that I had to bring into this space. And so I think that that's really helped me. Besides that, like, love of learning is, of course, top of the thing, I think, for skills. If you don't love learning, you should not be in data science because that's all you're going to be doing from here on out. So that's number one. But then I think you also have to have discipline. So, like, there's so much going on and so many things are changing. I think you also have to have the discipline to, like, you know, pick something, do a project to completion, show that work. You know, that's a super important skill that you have to not chase down all the things and have the discipline to produce work that people can see and projects out of that. That's really important.
Do you guys want to add something?
I can add to the data engineering side of things. So definitely, like, your concepts in handling big data, you know, building scalable systems, Apache, you know, Hadoop, those kind of, like, hard technical skills. And then obviously, like, you know, like my fellow panelists have mentioned, the soft skills, which you will slowly, like, start learning once you get into the industry, once you get your foot in the door. These things, at least I was not born with, or, like, you know, didn't get it right away. I had to, like, slowly learn, find mentors in the space, talk to other people, and develop it. So yes, that would be my input.
And I think for me, one of the things that has been a key piece of learning is that data is everywhere, actually. Like, it's very easy to reach for some of the, like, big data companies that we hear about and some of the FANG companies, but I work at BabyList. which is a baby registry and like a baby item fulfillment company. And we have like terabytes of data, right? And we're like optimizing shipping routes, right? And trying to I don't know, unify registries across all sorts of different areas. And this has a lot of data that's associated with it. And so I mentioned that solely as I think it's very easy to think like, oh, these are the only places that I can be in. But the reality that we exist in is that data is everywhere. It's part of like every system that we interact with and everything that we're doing. And so to that effect, like there's a lot of places to be able to find data work to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. And I think there's like lots of opportunity that like people ignore because we're so focused on super high tech stuff, but like where the intersection of data is with traditional industries, like there's going to be tons of opportunity there because the people that are working in that industry aren't there yet. And so there's opportunity there. I know it. I have ideas about it.
Yeah, nice. So next question is, which is also, there's so much of interest from the audience. So technology changes fast, especially with the things like AI. How do someone keep learning and decide what to focus next?
Yeah, I can take that one. So a couple of things. Like firstly, trying to see where generative AI like fits with your work. If you want to like focus, like what products are we building? Like how is this helping business? And if at all a generative AI is the best solution to go forward with, it may be that it's a nail and we don't need like a whole hammer to do it. We can just do it with a screwdriver. So taking that analogy, like just understanding whether generative AI is the best solution or not, or can we do it in a simpler manner, in a more efficient way. But that you will get once you like explore the field. What I call is like, going breadth first and then going depth first. So just exploring, courses are out there on Coursera. I love like, the university courses that are there. Then there's also deeplearning.ai, which has some great things on like prompt engineering and, prompt, even like learning how to generate like good prompts. So getting the fundamentals right. Even Google has some free online courses. So just checking them out and seeing and having a feel of the space if you're just starting out. So I just want to ask, like in the audience, how many are students and like starting off fresh? Oh, awesome. Kudos to you guys. So yeah, if you're just starting out in the space, trying to get the fundamentals right, getting like not following like trends blindly, because there is so much information overload, focusing on what problem matters to you more. Like if you're looking at a particular space or an industry, if there is something that you can do with generative AI in that would be super great. But if you are like in a professional setting, then what problem your team is facing, what your product is wanting, what your customers need, and then thinking through a generative AI lens can be more helpful. So yeah, that would be my input.
I would recommend and this is something that I didn't do, and I'm mad at myself that I didn't do when I was learning, is that I was so eager to get to the next thing that I could learn and the next thing that I would learn. I would finish what I just learned and then move on to the next. Like whatever you just built or whatever you just did in that learning, like literally delete it all from your computer and do it again. Do it again like at least 5 more times before you go on to the next thing, because it's going to be more in your body and you're going to remember more in your head. I highly recommend it. It's going to take longer, but in the long run, you're going to be much better off.
Yeah, and to piggyback on the sort of breadth first mindset, right? I'm a big proponent of open source. I do a lot of open source work. And there's a lot of things that are happening in both the, we'll say, paid product and like open source spaces for different data formats and different projects. It's kind of hard to keep track of it all. And so I would suggest like find the method for consuming that information that works for you. I cannot read an article to save my life, but I love podcasts. I'm always out walking my dog and listening to podcasts. So having podcast versions of like Python News, for instance, super helpful for me, because as I'm out on my walk, I'm hearing about these things. And then in my job, like in the projects that I work on, I think, oh, there's this need that I have for this particular thing. I thought I heard something about this like 2 months ago on a podcast, and then I can go back and find exactly what I'm looking for, because this there's so much that's just happening. And so, if I have some friends of mine who are prolific blog readers and they just consume articles like I could not. And so that's like something that's a little bit more useful for them. But find a way of like trying to consume that news that fits into your life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think the one other thing I'll add is just discipline. I think just developing a rhythm that works for you, even if that means like I'm going to set aside 20 minutes in a week to just read a blog or listen to a podcast, whatever it is that works for you. I think discipline is what helps a lot in the long run. And to something that you were mentioning about redoing it and finding opportunities at work maybe where you can apply it. I think that is also very helpful. It could be something as small as like I read a specific type of A/B test that I want to try out at work. Try and see if you can find an opportunity at work where you can apply it. And I think that helps a lot with retaining it, being able to like bring impact with your learning. And that kind of makes you feel good as well. So yeah.
Nice. So talking about the podcast and all these different article or channel or something, do you guys have any particular you follow or something?
Yeah, personally, I'll make a shout out to Python Bytes, which is like a 15-20 minute Python podcast that comes out, I think, once a week. They're super condensed and they're very good, and they have really great search for if you again, hear something 2 months ago and you're like, what was this that I heard? There's also a very thorough podcast called the Data Engineering Podcast that has a lot of guests from various platforms and various industries, and those are two podcasts that I really like.
There was a really great podcast when I started called Data Framed, and it's still there, and you can still listen to all of it. It's by Hugo Baum Anderson. He has another podcast now that's also good, but there's just the way that whole podcast was set up was so excellent. They would break through with like certain concepts and stuff. I just highly recommend listening to that. It's still good, even though it's not with the Gen AI concepts and stuff. You're going to have to find other concepts for that now. But just like the fundamentals of data science is fantastic. Data Framed. Yeah.
Okay, so next question is, so there are so many roles in data, like data engineer, product manager, or data scientist, or many more. So how can someone figure out which one is the best fit for them?
I'll go ahead. Yeah. If you are in a work context, my suggestion, I have two contexts that I'll speak to. If you're in a work context or an employee context, speak with your manager. I say that as there are, even as a data engineer, data engineering it's a bridge between like software engineering and then data analytics, and you're assisting data science and you're doing infrastructure, right? There's so many different avenues. And part of how I got into data engineering myself was through software engineering. And what I did early on in my career was just find the space that I found more enjoyment in, and then told my manager, like, hey, I'm interested in exploring this. I did the same later on with machine learning. Actually, there was an opportunity to develop a model, and I asked my manager, hey, I would love to get into this and like play around with data science and machine learning. And I very quickly found out that with data engineering, you get to see the boxes go green when a pipeline works. And with machine learning, it's like, 85% confidence interval. Like, is this good? Am I done? And so for me, I was able to like explore that and find, actually, no, I don't really like machine learning personally as much. I love supporting machine learning, but I like when the boxes go green and when I know when I'm done with my work. And so just being able to like explore and do those different things is really important. I also had the opportunity in my last role, the team lead went on parental leave. And so it was like a 6-month, there was going to be a gap in team leadership. And I thought, this is great. It's time bounded. I know that if I hate it, it will only be 6 months and I can give it a shot. And it was really informative for me in terms of the direction that I want my career to go in. And so to summarize that, it would just be speak with your manager and talk about different opportunities that might come up. And then I'll be really brief on the other side. If you're not in an employer context, open source work is great. Being an open source contributor is a great way to begin exploring stuff. A lot of maintainers of open source projects don't necessarily have all the time to implement the stuff that they want to implement. And review and incorporation of that code is often easier. And so you're kind of doing them a favor by contributing code, and then in turn, they're helping you learn best practices, learn how to like work in a particular language. It's a great opportunity for like mentorship and exploration. So highly encourage open source development.
Oh, that's a great answer. And I'm going to riff off your green. As a TPM, I like green check marks. That's the green that I like. I like getting things done, and that makes me super happy. One of the things that I think is really important when you're asking yourself this, and as a community manager, a lot of people ask me this question a lot too. Like, where do I start? I think you have to try to really figure out what you actually are most interested in, and like being self-reflective and like doing kind of that ikigai exercise, or like, what are you good at? What do you love? Can you get paid for? What's the fourth one I'm missing? I have it written down here. What does the world need? So those, and the intersection of those things, so is a really good place to start. And like sometimes the what am I good at question, like I've learned for myself that like the things that I'm good at, I'm like, doesn't everyone like just think about like dependencies and risks and contingency plans all the time? Like that's just like breathing to me, but that's not normal, but it's what I'm good at. And so I think like phone a friend, like talk to people, you know, that see you and can tell you like, well, you're really good at this. Like I'm really good at encouraging people, but I don't know that I'm good at that. It's just part of like my value structure and how I exist in the world. And these are the things that when I get feedback on that, it's a proud day. I've had a good day. So I have learned through other people that like, these are the things that I'm good at. And so then I kind of do that self-reflection diagram to feel like, oh, okay, I like before I even came out here and knew any of this, like what the heck is a TPM? I didn't know what that was. So, but this is something that I'm good at. So I think you kind of need to do that like self-reflection exercise too, and ask for feedback from other people that know you well to kind of help guide you too, which is like asking your manager, you know, same situation.
Yeah, I can add a little bit, like you can also talk to the people who are doing all those kind of role and see how that look like, if that match with your. Okay, do you guys want to add?
I think be very careful when you're reading the job description as to what you're applying for. So this is more for when you're actually applying to jobs. The term data science can mean so many things. The term applied scientist, business intelligence engineer, data engineer, machine engineer, I can go on. There are so many. Like very recently, I saw something called a decision data scientist and a design data scientist. I didn't know what a design data scientist was. So I think it's be very careful what you're applying for, read the descriptions, and if possible, like it was mentioned earlier, talk to people who are in that role. Try to understand what that role actually entails and what kind of work you'll be doing and if that aligns to your long-term goal or not. So I think this is more for when you're applying to jobs, when you're trying to figure out where you want to be careful with what you're applying to then.
Yeah. And the job description can be the same title in two different places.
Oh, yeah.
Completely different. Yeah.
And I think the one thing I'll say too, for a long-term goal, it's good to have a long-term goal. It's good to think, to have some direction that you're operating in. I think it's also important, not personal recommendation, not to be like married to that long-term goal. Because I think there are opportunities that are available that come up that you could not have predicted that might be worth exploring, right? And so definitely want to encourage, I'm not saying go by vibes only, but having an openness to like, oh, this door is open that I didn't know existed, and having the courage to walk through that.
100%. I second what all of them have said, you know, and especially like what Madison mentioned, like being flexible and having that mindset of, you know, you can pivot at any point you feel like it's not your cup of tea. Some people do know what they are good at. Like I know like there were coders and programmers with me who were like absolutely sure that they want a software engineering for their entire life. But it's okay if you have to pivot, you have to change paths, and you've figured on the way that, you know, maybe this is not your cup of tea. That's totally fine.
Nice. So next question, or maybe this is the last and we can take then the audience one. So as you move forward in your career, what helped you grow or move into a more senior role? Any lessons you would like to share?
I can start on that one. So a few things here. For me, like moving from software engineering to senior software, I realized that, first thing is like taking ownership of the not just your work but the entire like project, trying to see like I was very much into in my initial years, like, is my code good enough, is it passing all the quality checks, is the testing proper? But moving into senior roles, you kind of try to see the bigger picture, how it fits in the business goals. Are these features helping our customers? There are more stakeholders to manage. So that is one thing, learning to take ownership. Second one is like investing in soft skills, like these people have mentioned, communicating. How well can you communicate to your stakeholders, customers, your manager, bringing, everyone to alignment. So these things matter a lot when you move to like senior roles. Then obviously there is about like, staying curious at the same time. You want to stay curious and learn more. It's not that you've stepped into a senior role so all the learning ends. No, it's actually the beginning of, learning to manage teams, to lead, and lead without authority, like, soft power, develop relationships with people, network to people. And I think those soft skills matter a lot as you progress in your career. Yeah.
I think something that helped me was finding the right mentors, and not one, but having many mentors. I think it's like the way I was just mentioning at the speed mentoring session, it's like having a personal advisory board. You reach out to different people when you need, depending upon what you need, right? As I was growing into my senior role, there are a lot of roadblocks that you hit in terms of like maybe trying to navigate a specific conversation, maybe trying to figure out how can I bring visibility to my work. And I think having mentors in different areas helped me reach out to them and understand what is it that I can do to unblock myself and get to the next level. So I think mentorship and finding the right mentors is so important. Early on in my career, I did not understand the importance of this, but as I'm growing, as I'm understanding the complexities of growing up the ladder, how do I grow my scope, how do I bring my impact to a bigger team. So I think mentorship super important. Highly recommend finding the mentors and keeping in touch with them. It's like constant touch bases, trying to understand what is it that they can help you with, what is it that you can help them with. So developing that relationship is important, I think. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
So like at Amazon now, we have a very easy way that I can go find mentors internally in the company. But like, how would somebody that doesn't work at a giant corporation that has those resources do that? I have the answer to that. You join, the regular events that happen with diversity and data science. But I would love any perspective you have on that.
I think reaching out to people on LinkedIn sometimes helps. Something that I've done is like, say I look up to somebody or I'm super impressed with somebody's profile, I kind of message them and see if they'll be interested in having a chat. Prep yourself for that chat. Please don't go in not prepped. Prep yourself with what is it that you want to like present yourself as, what is it that you want to understand from them. I think that's one way. You don't always get responses. So I want to say that like you'll maybe get like 20% or 30%, and that's fine. I think that's one way in which I found it to be super helpful. And the other is like these communities. Yeah, reaching out, using the programs through these communities, finding like different networking circles through them. That's been super helpful. Yeah.
In terms of advancement to the senior level, I'm going to keep ringing this bell because it's like the thing that I carry with me is open source development. I'm curious for you all, the other panelists, would you say that like in the projects that you work on in work, is it more greenfield or is it more you're coming into something that already exists and having to make changes into the system? Do you feel like there's a proportion one way or the other, like which way that leans?
I think for software development, when you are moving into the next stage, definitely it helps if it is, building from scratch, like building something new. At least for me, that has been helpful in gaining visibility, because if something already exists, it's easier to make modifications, and it already has a loyal customer base, so the impact probably is not that measurable as compared to when you launch like a new product, or when you launch like a new entirely new feature. So that's something that'll have more impact. Obviously, it has more risk, but I think that's the trade-off that I'd had to make.
Interesting. I ask this because, like, I find, at least for myself, as time has gone on, and I've changed positions, like, and worked at different places, a lot of times I find myself jumping into something rather than starting, like, oh, this is like a greenfield project. Like, I'm jumping into a code base that I'm unfamiliar with, or a company, a business vertical that I don't know. And so I think actually the something to help unlock that is open source contribution, right? Because it's very much like, I think going through college and like undergrad and whatnot, you're building a lot of things from scratch, right? You're starting like from an empty repository and you have to do an assignment or build a project or something. When the workplace reality, at least as I have found, is so much like, oh, there's like thousands of lines of code that already exist, and you have to go in and find how to do the thing that your manager told you to do. And I do think that like open source is a great way to approach that, because there's all these existing code bases out, and there's issues to work on there, and it's a really good way of being able to navigate an unfamiliar project and being able to find the things that like discover what questions you need to ask in order to accomplish the task that you need. And I think that to like jump off of some other points, like you do have to take in the senior level like a step back, but I think so much more often you're like coming up to something that is already there and being asked to make some change to it. And I think that's a really useful skill for that.
That's good advice. I was wondering where you were going, and now I get it. No, I got it. Yeah, to come into a project that you that already exists, open source is a way for you to develop that muscle in order to do that. That's really cool. Yeah, I've done like the DVC thing. Like, they didn't have a community manager before, and I just created like all the stuff. At Amazon, it's totally different. Everything exists, and I'm drinking from the fire hose trying to understand. So yeah, it's I don't know if there was an open source way for me to attack that problem, but yeah.
And especially with smaller companies, I think too. Like it's a lot, particularly, I mean, with Gen AI, right? It's a lot easier to have a lot more code and surfaces that code touches. Have people who like know intimately what that code does, and so I think that's very useful in those contexts too.
Okay, we had so many great questions, but this question is interesting. How do you balance diversifying your experience or trying new roles versus deciding when you want to focus in and specialize more in a role?
I think I actually think so much of this is deals with like satisfaction and contentment. So for me, when I was kind of in the space of exploring things, it was because I felt content, right? And because of that, I wanted to do something to help myself grow, expand some skills, right? Move into a new space. And then in doing so, I either found that that was something that I wanted to pursue and then honed in more on that, or found that, you know, maybe my circle of skills or of techniques was expanded a little bit, but I had clarity on the direction that I either was going or wanted to go in. And so I think if, in terms of like balancing what to pursue, like you don't, I guess it's not always this effort of like, oh, I'm always wanting to try new things or whatnot, but it's, I think when things start to feel rote, then that's a good time to think like, okay, what else can I get into, right?
I think so. At that point at which you feel like I'm not learning or growing anymore, and I'm not happy with it. I think sometimes it's okay if you just want to keep doing the same stuff for a few years and you're not really looking to, you know, grow your skill set in that way. Like, you've reached the point at which you know that this skill set is enough for the role I'm at. And I think that's fine. Like, you know, it's contentment, it's happiness at that point. But I also think it's about trying to figure out what is it that the next step in your career needs. And if the next step requires you to explore more, to learn more, to step into different roles, then I think that's kind of where you need to be more intentional with it and try to figure out where is it that I want to go next and what is it that I need for that. So I think a little bit of it is that as well, like career growth. Yeah.
Awesome. And one more question would be, how can someone from a non-computer engineering background develop the skills necessary to be considered for roles in data science field? Very important for.
So, I mean, I guess I can speak to that. I mean, I took online courses, I listened to podcasts, I absorbed as much as I could. I did projects, I participated in the Datathon from WiDS year after year. And that really helped me grow, and learning from all my colleagues or my community members at data circles and WiDS. That really helped me gain what I needed. I really think the projects are the most important thing that you can do. You have to have them on your resume. People need to be able to look at them. If you don't have them, like, there's no point. So yeah, you need to do projects and be disciplined about doing them. And I'm kind of mad at myself. Like, I've gone into these other roles and I still really want to do those projects, and I just don't have time right now, but I want to because I want to keep like flexing those skills and things. And I've been able to, like, in some ways, like, I loved, we had a whole dashboard project that we did also through data circles, and that really helped me, part of getting my first job. But that wasn't a part of my job as a community manager, but I ended up making it a part of my job as a community manager because I didn't want to lose that skill. And so I did my community metrics as a tablet dashboard, and so that I could continue doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add to Jenny's point and building off of Madison. So open source is really good, especially like communities like Kaggle. So you can have your projects displayed there. It's valued by industries. There are company competitions that happen there. So you can submit your project to these companies. I remember, like, I had submitted long time back Google I/O or something, and it was picked for presentation. So there are things like these that you can pursue. Definitely having a GitHub profile, putting all your projects on there. It's easy for recruiters or even your potential hiring managers to go over your profile and see like what you've done technically in the space. Also, like, being part of like communities like these, women in data science and other data-oriented circles can help you find mentors and right people who can guide you along the way in how to make your profile stronger. So yeah, just a couple of actionable points there.
Yeah, thank you for taking that so it wasn't Madison answers open source to the question. But really, like, it is a great way to be able to not only contribute to projects, learn and grow your skills. Like I said, most maintainers like want these things done, and a lot of times will take the effort to like help mentor contributors in order to get like contributions across the line. Conferences will often hold like sprint days where they'll like bring maintainers in to help work in person and like get you set up and get you your first contribution. And so if you haven't done like an open source contribution, that's a great way to do it. And yeah, to that point, it's great to have a GitHub profile that shows like, I have made these contributions to these like projects that people use. Mm-hmm. And so like NumPys and pandas and stuff. And even I think the one other point that I'll add there too is open source contribution doesn't just have to look like code. There are plenty of ways to contribute to open source projects that are non-code or that can get you in the direction of code, right? The number of PRs that I have that are like adding documentation or something, right? Those are
so needed.
Source, yeah, those are open source contributions, and so that's valuable. That's valuable work, and so just yeah, that to say that there's many ways to engage in open source and get in that direction.
All right, we're at time. Thank you so much, panel. Everyone give them a round of applause.